comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah, here comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it now.
Well, back at the Village Inn, and my guest today, and most people know him as the face of Newgate. He's known obviously around the world, not just in Australia. They've had Golden Slipper winners, Royal Ascot winners, and then now they've been the winner of the Everest. Slot holder for the first time this year. Henry, welcome.
Glenn, great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
What a great weekend, eh?
Yeah, it was a great weekend. It'll certainly help us pay a few bills. But no, it was magic. And to see Sydney light up like it did for the Everest was just a great thing for racing. It was incredible weekend and an incredible race, and so fortunate to have been part of the winner.
Tell us about how you got to select him. So this is your first year that you've had a slot.
First year, so Greg.
Not a bad strike rate, eh?
No, okay, we'll try and get try to give it up. No, it won't be easy. But Greg and Bingham had the slot, and they approached me some months ago in New Zealand and asked, could we partner together with Newgate and GPI, and they felt that given we were in Sydney and had the finger on the pulse with racing, etc., that we might be able to source the right horse and source the right deal, and sort of leverage off some of our relationships that have good horses. And so with this particular horse, think about it. He was bred at Newgate, born at Newgate by Greg and Donna Kolovos of Piero fame, and he was a big, raw, gangly kind of yearling. We bred him on the farm, foaled him down, raised him. The whole team at Newgate developed him. And we sold him as a yearling to Jamie Walter. It was actually passed in. We could not.
Passed in for 70 grand, was
It
he?
was passed in for 100. We couldn't get a bid for. We couldn't get a bid anywhere for the horse to sell him. And the only guy that came back a couple of times to look at him was Jamie Walter with Joe Pride. So our stud manager Jim Kerry, who a lot of people know, a great horseman, a great judge of a horse himself. He got on the phone and started trying to hustle Jamie Walter and said $100,000 and you should buy the horse. And Jamie said, I'll bid you 70. And Jim said, go back to Mr. Kolovos and agreed on a private sale at $70,000. And he was a big, lanky, raw, not an obvious horse at all. Like biometrically, he was actually good. He was built the right way, but he was a big, lanky, backward horse, like a big, lanky, backward teenager at school that furnished and developed into a fine sort of older horse. Now he's a 5-year-old, but so I knew the horse very well. I knew the horse from the days growing up on the farm, watched him very closely, and he was virtually in the Brisbane Carnival a horse that we have Daniel O'Sullivan on retainer, a very good form analyst. He's been with us for a long time at Newgate, and his view at that point was that if you can't get I Wish I Win or Giga Kick, he's the best horse to get because he's a horse on an upward spiral. His ratings were improving every start. At that point in time, I think he was 8 wins from 9 starts, and the day he got beat was very unlucky.
Yeah, he ran third.
That's right, and should have won easily. So in reality, he was unbeaten. And as you know, Scully, you never know how long a piece of string is with an unbeaten horse. You never know how far they can go. And so he took a position early, and he hasn't let us down. He's an unbelievable horse. And he's got an amazing will to win, a huge heart, huge aerobic capacity, and he's a horse with great talent. So he ticks all the boxes what you want in a great racehorse.
So you touched on, you were asked to take over the slot, and because of your contacts, whatever, negotiate a good deal. How do those negotiations go? Are they difficult things? Obviously, your first year, but I suppose when you're dealing with the guy that's bought it off your farm, and there's already a connection there already.
Yeah, and we had a great relationship with Jamie Walter. He's a really, really good person first and foremost, and real straight shooter, easy to deal with. I suppose we're involved with a lot of, we do a lot of stallion deals, and we're recruiting stallions all the time on the farm. So it was not that dissimilar doing a stallion deal. Right. It was, you identify the horse, you work out what he thinks a fair price or deal structure in this case, and you propose it, and you have a bit of wiggle room, and you sort of go back and forth a little bit, and when you've got two people that are fairly straight up and fair in how they act and how they deal, it's not hard to do a deal, is it?
Yeah.
And it ended up being a great deal for them because, with the way it was structured, was I think really. Financially was very positive for the owners of the horse, for the proven thoroughbreds owners, but a great result for us financially, and was a huge injection for us to, from an economic perspective, to to get the result because it's such a it's a $20 million race. And
Yeah. So you weren't an original slot holder.
no.
A lot of the studs were. Why did you sit back and wait?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Peter Volandis, when he came up with the idea that they wanted to do it, he actually contacted me and I spoke to him on numerous occasions about it. And I suppose a couple of reasons. One is it was at a time when we were sort of fairly new into our business, and it was a lot of money to put up to be a slot holder. Secondly to that is we'd seen the race in America, which was unsuccessful, the Pegasus. And realistically didn't work at all. And what we didn't factor in at that point in time was Peter Volandis' ability to make something work. In reality, he made something which hadn't worked anywhere else in the world work unbelievably well. And to think that the Racing of the Whales have turned that race in 7 or 8 years from a nothing, from just an idea, into one of the world's great races, into a race that is talked about by not just racing people, but all people.
It's seriously got to be rivaling the Melbourne Cup, already is at this point, isn't it?
Well, I think, what's interesting is when I was growing up, I used to love the Melbourne Cup, and you knew every horse, whether it was Letterlope or Saintly or these horses that had gone through the grades and raced all through Australia or New Zealand, or we knew the horses so well, and it takes nothing away from the horses that are racing in the Melbourne Cup now, but the racing public don't really know them as well. With the Everest horses,
coming from overseas,
they're overseas horses, low on the handicap, so they're not even the really top overseas horses. They're often coming to the Cox Plate or the Queen Elizabeth. They're horses that are very good improving horses on as you know, on a handicap. So we don't really have that same familiarisation as we had back in the day with the Melbourne Cup horses. All those great, Australian horses, even horses like So You Think, the sire of Think About It, I think he ran third in the Melbourne Cup. We knew these horses so well. Now we don't really know them as well. Whereas the Everest horses, they are proper household names. Every person knows anything about racing. And nearly all the horses in that field.
It seemed with Giga Kick not there, Nature Strip, and maybe Eduardo to a lesser extent not being around for the race. It looked like the race had lost a little bit of its luster. But my word, on Saturday the race was you just could not pick a better day, a better result, and a better race for the Everest.
Oh, it was just an incredible race. It was a very open race, but the marker got it perfectly right, and the favourite won, and the second favourite ran second, the third favourite ran third, and it's just an amazing race, and it's really captured the interest of the nation, and of course the Melbourne Cup does that too, and those races, they're very, very special races, whether it be the Melbourne Cup or the Everest or the Cox Plate. We've got the Golden Slipper in Australia, in Sydney as well. They're such important races for the future, for the sport, to promote the sport, because they're the best horses, they're the biggest stage, they're the biggest prize money, and it's what really gets the juices flowing when people watch racing and seeing these great horses compete. And on Saturday in the Everest, we saw great horses compete, and we saw 2 outstanding horses run first and second. Great horses all the way back, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. But to see I Wish I Win and Think About It fight out the Everest and the nature they did, it was just amazing to watch. It was great theatre, and it was just an incredible day's racing.
Yeah. Well, of course, you're it's a breeding operation by default, by design. You had militarised running in the Caulfield Guineas on the same day.
Yes, we did.
You choose to stay in Sydney to watch a gelding run, whereas your stallion making race in Melbourne with militarised, it didn't quite go to plan for him, but he's got aspirations that go now to the Cox Plate.
Yeah, that's right. The Caulfield Guineas, it was a race where he started a short price favourite and just didn't work out from it all. He missed the start. They went very slowly. Yeah. I think the horses ran 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th were that way the whole race. He was out the back, made up great ground. He's a really good colt, and he's come through the race well. So yeah, we'll go to the Cox Plate, and we've got the superstar apprentice Zach Lloyd on board, and a superstar young 3-year-old colt, and for the two of them lack of inexperience, they certainly make up an ability, and both horses are winners. Both horse and jockey, they're winners, right? They're really. Really, he's the exciting young horse, I think, of Australian racing, militarised, and Jack's the same as far as a rider goes. So, of the of the riding base in Australia. So we're very fortunate to go into the race with the horse. It's a live chance, and the Cox Plate's a great race. It's a great stay-in-making race, and it's very exciting to be going in there with a live one.
Yeah, well, of course, you couldn't get a better bred young rider in Zach Lloyd. His dad was a champion. He's pretty well related too.
Yeah, no, he's got a huge pedigree. I think
Yeah.
there's a couple of colts somewhere in the pedigree that let the family down a little
Yeah.
bit, Scully. But
Yeah, but you know, when racing's in your blood, it's in your blood, isn't
That's
it?
right.
It's very hard to get away from it. So, I believe your grandfather was responsible for bringing Star Kingdom to Australia.
my great grandfather was, yeah, that's right. My mother's grandfather and him and his son Tiggy and his son still breeds, and my mum and my dad always had a few mares. So it's I suppose in your blood, right?
Yeah.
You know, breeding.
Is that where your passion for racing came from?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just loved horses, ponies. The ponies were what I loved the most. I loved riding my ponies as a kid, and grew up on a cattle farm, and that was really, you know, I had a great pony called Treacle, and loved that horse so much, and saw that, you know, my relations breed a few horses, and then I went to work when I was at school. I went to boarding school in Sydney, and I went to work for Gay when I was at school, and she was a great teacher.
She would have taught you how to work.
The thing about Gay is that she teaches you so many things. The horse side of it, obviously, she's a genius, but the you know, things like work ethic, like just turning up every day, like being able to deal with constructive criticism and learn from it. You know, I've never seen anybody in my life to this day with a work ethic like Gay. I'm sure there are other people in the industry that have that work ethic, but I've never seen anything like it, and still have such energy. And, you know, I think a real credit to her is to see that she made Adrian a project, Adrian Bott, and she's, you know, Adrian's obviously got a lot of natural talent himself, but she trained him to being now one of the best young trainers, or the best trainers full stop in this country. And, you know, to train a horse is one thing, to train a human's another, and she's a real credit to the industry. And, you know, there's been plenty of good trainers come out of her tutelage, like John O'Shea used to work for her, Mark Newman used to work for her, plenty of good trainers and really top trainers, and I'm sure there's many others I haven't thought of. Hugo Palmer, one of the leading trainers in England, and you know, George Bowie, another leading trainer in England. Like, a lot of good trainers have worked for Gay, and for me, I learned at that point that I didn't want to be a trainer. It was, you know, it just wasn't for me. But thankfully, I was given the opportunity to go on the first Godolphin Flying Start course.
Flying Start program, yeah, and that took you everywhere, didn't it?
All around the world. It was unbelievable. It was the most extraordinary opportunity for a 19-year-old boy.
Was that the first first program?
Wow. First year. So got the opportunity to that, and went to Ireland, England, Dubai, America, Australia. Worked for all the Godolphin farms, all the, you know, lectures off great breeders, great trainers, great vets. Just I learnt so much. The opportunity that I got on that course, it was phenomenal. And Sheikh Mohammed, you know, everyone sees his horses and his dominance and the global empire he's got, but, you know, what he's given back to the industry in so many ways. You know, he's a man that's done so much for our industry, and we all are grateful, but we all should be grateful. And certainly from a perspective of myself, to get that opportunity was just amazing. I was very lucky to get that, and that led me to my next opportunity, which, yeah, in life you've got to keep taking the opportunities as they come. And I went and worked for Coolmore at the end of the course, and which was amazing. Incredible global operators, and Tom Magnier at the time, who did such an amazing job running Coolmore Australia, was you know, I lived with him and I worked with him, and we were young bucks, so to speak, learning the trade, and I was, you know, it was amazing. Great, they were great times, both from a professional perspective, but also just growing up in our, you know, early 20s, and yeah, some great trips. You know, travelling horses to the English Derby for the Coolmore team, or working in Ashford in Kentucky in the stallion shed, and learning about what horses look like and how to buy and sell horses, all these things which, you know, you got to get experience. You got to see how it works in life. You know, it's not you don't just wake up one day and be a good judge of a horse or be a good trader of horses or buyer or seller. It's like anything. It's like being a jockey. You got to work hard and you got to learn the trade properly inside out, and all those experiences sort of got me to the point where, after spending 5 or 6 years with Coolmore, mainly in Australia but also in America and Ireland, I decided to have a crack and set up my own business and set up Newgate in 2010, and it's built up ever since.
So in 2010 you started Newgate. 13 years you've gone from zero to where you currently are at the moment. That's an amazing achievement. So obviously you've got a lot of people, you've got a great team with you as well.
Yeah, I reckon that's been a huge thing. I started off probably a bit overly ambitious. I had a few mares that I'd built up when I was at Coolmore, and I got a little bit of working capital, leased a farm, which we actually still lease now, a couple of 100 acres. It was a rundown farm at that time, and did the farm up and got a good lease deal and had a few mares and bought and sold a few horses, and bought some more mares that had some foals, and I sold the foals and bought some more mares, and so forth over a period of few years. And then Fox Wedge came along, who was a fantastic horse that my now brother-in-law James Harron bought as a yearling for Dr. Edmund Bateman and his wife Belinda Bateman. And when they came to the point to stand the horse at stud on a little leased farm, they gave me the opportunity, Dr. Bateman, to syndicate him, and that was my first stallion. And I think he beat a horse that night, Haylist, which I think you were riding, Scully.
Yeah.
It was like a short price.
I beat him in the Newmarket, and then he beat me in the
William Reid.
William Reid, yeah.
That's right. That is right. So he was. It was a night when, Haylist may not have run to his best, and Fox Wedge ran to his absolute best, but he had a great record when he went to stud, and it was a huge coup to get that horse. And with that, I'd had a great relationship with two guys in particular, Gavin Murphy, who's an Australian guy, grew up in Rockhampton, went to New York as a young 20-year-old, and did incredibly well in corporate America, and he was built up a company called SF Bloodstock, which is it's basically a company which buys and sells horses, and he's the brains behind that. Him and a guy called Tom Ryan, who's a very good horse trader in America, and I had a relationship with Gavin, and also Matthew Samblom, who's a big owner in Sydney and always has been, and I'd known Matthew for years at my time at Coolmore. And when I started buying and selling horses, Matthew would give me the seed capital. He'd say, he'd put the money up and we'd profit share it basically, and so we might buy a weanling for $100,000 and he'd lend me half and he'd put half the capital up, and then we'd settle based upon winning or losing at the end. And those two guys really backed me and saw my potential probably before I did, and got Fox Wedge, both significant shareholders, in particular Gavin and SF Bloodstock, and then a big farm came up for sale. In my opinion, one of the really great farms in the Hunter Valley, called Brooklyn Lodge. Rego or Champion Sire used to stand there, and the farm that had raised slipper winners and great horses. And it was, again, a rundown farm, but great land, great water, great location, right next door to Godolphin in the Sedgemoor Valley. And together we bought the farm and went into business together. And I feel that I'm so lucky to have partners like that have helped drive the business. I'm the front for the business, and I'm in the trenches every day, but got two of the smartest guys you would ever meet, both unbelievably successful in their own endeavours, that are with me every single step of the way and mentoring me and teaching me, and that has been the success of our business. That's gone from again, in 13 years, a farm that didn't even exist to a farm that's, we may not breed the most number of mares of any farm in Australia this year, but we're very close.
Well, talking about the horses, because without the quality flesh, we've got no racing.
Dead right.
We touched on Peter Volandis earlier, and he's done some great things and created some great races for us to be part of. But without the horses, we don't have a sport.
100%.
So Newgate were the leading vendors at the Magic Millions this year, and buyers.
Yep, leading vendor and leading buyer. We're also the leading vendor of all of all consigners and farms in Australia, we turn the most money over in the market.
So when you're buying your colt, you bought what 18 colts at the. So how do you decide on which trainers? Because you mentioned Gay and Adrian,
Yep.
Chris Waller with Militarized.
Yeah.
Obviously you're heavily involved with Peter and Paul Snowden as
Yeah.
well. I'm sure I've missed out one or two there. How do you decide when you buy your colts? Because when they become stallions, they're very valuable. How do you decide which horse goes where? Do you is there a thought process and a definite thought process behind that?
Yeah, there is. So I suppose we're probably not the easiest people to train for because we're very hands-on in the management of them, and we work really hard. Like growing up in the business, we run our racing stable, our colts partnership, which we do with China Horse Club and half a dozen of the top breeders in Australia. We run it as a for-profit operation, so we've run it profitably for most years we've done it for, and to do that, we're very, very hands-on in the management of them. We continually have our vet going through them. We have Daniel O'Sullivan helping doing form, spelling farms. We use a really good horseman called Matt Vella who pre-trains a lot of the horses. And first of all, we look to see what, I suppose the precocity levels a thing, whether they're going to be later mature, early mature, their temperament, their ability to handle pressure, not handle pressure. All those things we look at the horses over the first 6 months of owning them and then decide which trainer to give them to. And our main three trainers are obviously the Snowdens, Gay and Adrian and Chris Waller. And we've got great long-term relationships with them. The Snowdens have been instrumental in the growth of Newgate because we've had so many stallions through their stable. But all those trainers, we've had success in the Congo with Gay and Adrian won a Golden Rose. And Chris with Militarized won a Golden Rose, and also that horse won a Champagne de Sires. So we're working just close. Basically, it's trainers that work out very well on our numbers. With that Daniel O'Sullivan does that. Trainers that have we run continual numbers on trainers and jockeys the same on a regular basis. So they've got to be good trainers, very good trainers, be people that we feel we can work with closely. And in those three trainers, they tick those boxes. But there are so many trainers in Australia that we would love to work with them. And all of our horses are in Sydney. We keep them in one bowl so we can manage them closely. Yeah. There are other great trainers in Sydney we don't use, which we'd love to, and we might over the next few years try a few others. And also in Melbourne there are some amazing trainers, and also in Brisbane. I mean, we've got some great trainers in this country, and we'd rather have more horses in less stables so that we're an important part of those stables. But yeah, certainly we're lucky to have the incredible list of trainers we have in this country.
It's interesting. I was reading up, talking about like a lot of these pop-up races. We call them pop-up races. Probably it's an understatement. Like the Everest, the Golden Eagle, and big money races. So I was having a look. There are more Group 1 races worth more money over a mile and longer than there are sprint races. Is there a reason why Newgate have bought a horse called State of Rest? He offers something completely different to what you've currently got. You've got just Speed on your stallion roster. You've got State of Rest, who's obviously a Cox Plate winner.
Yes.
He's a Royal Ascot winner.
Yes.
He's got a lot more stout blood to him, but he's got speed as well.
Yeah, he's a really good mile and a quarter.
He seems
horse.
like a good fit for an Australian career, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's such an advantage buying stallions that have been tried and tested on our conditions. So for us, for the last few years, we've decided we wouldn't mind trying a middle distance horse onto the roster, but we wanted to be very specific in the horse we got. And 3-year-old Cox Plate winners have an unbelievable record at stud. There's only been, in the last 20 years, there's been 5 3-year-old Cox Plate winners. Colts, all Colts, 5 of them. So they've got a good strike rate themselves, 3-year-old Colts in the Cox Plate. Out of those 5, obviously State of Rest hasn't got foals yet. The other ones are So You Think, Savabeel, Seamus Award. So like they're excellent stallions. I mean, the 2 of them quinelled the Everest on Saturday. So it's a race that honing on the colt that can win that is a really, we think, it's a really good low risk play trying to get a good stallion. And we felt he was a good fit. We knew we had a bit of inside running there. Nick Williams, who's very close with Joseph O'Brien and Lloyd, his father, and Aidan, and they told us before the horse arrived in Australia, they thought this was a very good horse, a very, very good horse. And the market didn't really probably understand how good he was at the time. As it turned out, he retired as a 4-time Group 1 winner and arguably the best horse of his year in that 12-month period where he won, the top Group 1 race, in Australia, or the top weight for age Group 1 race in Australia, the top race at Royal Ascot, a very, very strong Group 1 in France and a high-level Group 1 in Saratoga in America. So he retired with an unbelievable resume, and he's a horse that really fit the bill for us to try and open up our market a little bit and have a horse that could stretch over a bit of ground. But I do also think great stallions are versatile, and there's you see a lot of great stallions that they might have been sprinters, but they can throw middle distance horses, and vice versa, middle distance stallions that can throw great sprinters. And I think versatility is a really important asset in a stallion.
Yeah, I think he certainly fits that mold. He's won on 3 different continents, hasn't he?
He has, yeah, he has,
and it showed a lot of toughness when he came out and won here, didn't he?
Yeah, toughness, tenacity, had a turn of foot. He was really exciting horse, and yeah, excited to have him on the roster. And
is he shuttling?
He shuttles back and forth to Ireland, and he's a really important young stallion for Ireland. He's at Rathbarry, Southern Ireland, and good to have militarised now too. Who, even though he's won his Group 1s sort of below a mile and up to a mile, we feel confident he'll be a horse that can stretch out over it further as well.
So militarised goes to the Cox Plate. Of course, we've got the Caulfield Cup coming this weekend. You don't have anything.
Nothing in the Caulfield Cup. It's not really a race for the stallions come out of because it's a handicap over a mile and a half.
Yeah. Whereas
the Cox Plate, really, you've got brilliant milers that stretch, or you've got the best mile and a quarter horses.
It's the best weight for
it's a great race. I mean, it is a great race, the Cox Plate, and there's not. Anytime you've got a race, doesn't matter what country in the world it's in, where the best horse is running it, it will become a stallion making race. You can set your clock by that, and we've seen the best 2-year-old wins Golden Slipper. The Cox Plate we know is a great stallion making race, and I'm sure you'll see the Everest will be the same. It's very hard for a colt to win the Everest running against those hardened older geldings, but you can be rest assured that will be a race that will be a great stallion making race too in the fullness of time.
Well, so we've got the Caulfield Cup, the Cox Plate, then the Melbourne Cup Carnival, then racing sort of shuts down for a little period of time, but I'm sure it doesn't shut down for you, does it?
No, it's an exciting next month, that's for sure. And
because the 2-year-olds start coming out now, and they start showing their best for the autumn, and then of course we into the Golden Slipper again.
They do, and it's interesting. I suppose what we've seen in recent years, as I grew up, and I'm sure when you first came to Australia, it was the same. Every old timer would say, if you don't run your 2-year-old before Christmas, you can't win the Slipper.
I remember when my first year here, I won a horse called Real Saga.
Good horse.
And one of my mates was out, a bloodstock agent was out over Christmas, and we're having a chat, and he's saying, how's it all going? And I said, I think I'll win the Golden Slipper on this horse. Anyhow, long story short, as time went on, we're getting into sort of January and February, I was at the trials and I was talking to one of the Kelly boys, and he was asking me about the horse and the Golden Slipper. And I said, but I'm sure there'll be some really good ones starting to come out now, with a little bit of time. He said, and he told me that something like in the last 30 or 40 years, only one Golden Slipper winner has not raced before December.
Well, I'm sure that was the case, and there was.
I don't know if it's still the case now.
In the history of the Golden Slipper, there's no breeders that know how to win the race better than the Kellys. They've had amazing success in that race. But I think it's changed a little bit, and I think we've seen the likes of Shinzo, who won this year's Slipper, had his first run in January, and there's been a number of 2-year-olds in the last 5 years that didn't run until after Christmas, and it's interesting. We've sort of got less 2-year-olds running before Christmas this year. We'll see how that goes for us, but we've got a really nice crop of 2-year-olds we're excited about, but we're just holding them back a little bit more this year, and we'll see if that pays dividends.
Oh well, it's been great having a chat with you. Congratulations again on Saturday. I'm sure the parties and the celebrations were long into the night, and well, you got to go and do it again now.
That's the goal. That's the goal. 2024. We'll start focusing on trying to get a result now. But no, it's been a great weekend. It's been a great year, and it's been a privilege to be on the podcast today, Glenn.
Oh, great. Henry, it's been great having you. Thanks very much for coming in. And well, that's us from today. And thanks to my guest Henry Field from Newgate coming in and having a chat with us.